It's the Friday News Roundup. We're talking about why a proposed rideshare tax just increased fivefold. The sheriff's office is getting some heat again, and lawmakers want ICE out of Philly airports. So we asked for your take on this. It's Friday, March 26th. I'm Abby Fritz, filling in for Trinanery, and here's what Philly's talking about. All right, joining me this week is CityCast Philly newsletter editor Siani Colón. Hey, Siani.
Hey, Abby. Morning, everybody.
Let's get right into the news. There's a lot going on this week. So Mayor Cherelle Parker gave her budget proposal for the 2027 fiscal year 2 weeks back, which we've covered a few times on the podcast. But one of the proposals that caught a lot of attention was a tax on ride shares that would benefit the public school district. So this was initially a 20-cent tax on every rideshare ride that started in Philadelphia. And now the mayor is leaning in on this. And she announced this week she wants to bump that number up to $1.
As a regular Lyft user, I had to do a double take when I saw that number went up. I'm like, what do you mean? And it's a big deal. If this passes, it's estimated that the tax could eventually raise $48 million per year for the district, which is facing a $300 million deficit.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of this, aside from the years of underfunding, the end of federal pandemic relief funds exacerbated this funding problem that now we're desperately trying to fix. So without the extra funding that the district has, Superintendent Tony Watlington already proposed reassigning roles and cutting programs that support lower achieving schools as a way to save money. So this is definitely perfect timing for a new stream of funding because the district is clearly in need of it.
Right. I mean, this conversation about the school district is like so prominent right now. I mean, there's students protesting. I read this was happening over at Paul Robeson High School in West Philly. 18 schools are potentially closing. So hundreds of school-based programs could be eliminated. There's the huge financial deficit. It's not looking good. So I get why the mayor is doing this, but I'm wondering, like, why right now she decided to up the ante a bit.
And there's still time to see when or if this is going to take place at all, right? You know, with the tax going up $1, that would take effect in January of next year. But it still needs to be approved by City Council, and they have some thoughts on that. City Council President Kenyatta Johnson, he echoed your point. He wondered why the $1 tax wasn't in the initial proposal that we were given during the mayor's initial announcement. Councilmember Bass straight up said that she doesn't like it.
Why doesn't she like it?
She's concerned that this is something that could wind up being a burden to people who rely on ride shares. And some other council members, like Councilmember Harity, also expressed the same sentiment. But not everyone was completely negative. Councilmember Curtis Jones was kind of receptive to the idea. He thought it was genius, but there still needs to be consensus in council that at the moment isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid concern about passing the burden on to consumers. I mean, the Inquirer talked to Uber and Lyft about this, and they definitely alluded to prices for rides going up. So that sounds like, to me, it's going to be $1 I'm paying to help the school district.
And that's the difficult thing when it comes to these conversations. Like, at the end of the day, these taxes are meant to fund different city services and programs that are supposed to benefit us, right? But the cost racks up as the taxes go up. I can speak from my experience at a previous job of mine. When I looked back at my credit card statements at the end of the month, most of my paycheck was going back to paying to commute to and from work because I don't drive. And at the time, I didn't feel like SEPTA was the safest or most reliable option for where I needed to go, when I definitely would have preferred paying the then $2.50 fare to get to where I needed to go. And this just goes to show Philadelphians wouldn't have to be burdened by fees on ride shares or heavily rely on them to begin with if we had a robustly funded public transportation system.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of this funding, too, is going to go to fund free SEPTA fares for certain district employees. I read about how it might help people pay, like, parking tickets if they can't afford it. So it's proposed to go to the school district and also some other places. But this all kind of goes back to transit access and like who can afford to front the bill to fund these different initiatives.
It's definitely going to be a long budget season. So if you need any resources to catch you up to speed, or if you want to speak up about the budget, we have a guide on our website telling you everything you need to know about upcoming hearings and details of the budget proposals.
Yep, there are those town halls going on right now. There's plenty of ways to have your voice be heard about this. In other City Hall news this week, the office of the sheriff is back in the news again.
Here we go.
This one is interesting because I feel like of all of the things that they've been in the news for, this one feels just kind of silly and like a clerical issue. According to the Inquirer, there have been a ton of complaints that the sheriff's office is not fulfilling one of its most basic duties, which is to transfer deeds to people who purchase properties from sheriff sales.
This is one of the most basic functions of the sheriff's office. They auction off properties that have been seized, usually because of unpaid taxes or bills. Then the new owner is supposed to get a deed and be able to, renovate the property, move in, rent it out, whatever they want to do with that property. This happens across the country. But it's not happening here. Ever since Sheriff Cherelle Parker took office more than 5 years ago, she's gotten a ton of complaints that this process is not running smoothly.
People are saying that they're buying these properties at auction and then they just don't get any follow-up from the sheriff. They don't get the deed. They don't hear from them. I just can't imagine buying a house and never getting the keys or ordering food at a restaurant and then just sitting at an empty table. But now 2 separate debt acquisition firms have sued the sheriff's office. They both say that properties were bought at auction months or even years ago and they still haven't gotten the deeds. So I have no idea what's going on here.
And so far, Sheriff Parker hasn't shared anything, hasn't commented on these lawsuits. She's insisted before that her office has tried to fix these problems, including spending millions of dollars on software upgrades. But buyers say that hasn't helped much or at all. And while buyers wait for legal rights to these properties, these lots can sit empty, trash can accumulate. It's just becoming a blight in the communities. And this just kind of adds to the poor reputation that the sheriff's office is gaining, right? We spoke with State Rep Jared Solomon last year, who has said he wants to abolish the sheriff's office because things have gotten so bad. So it'll be interesting to see if these lawsuits change anything at all, but only time will tell.
Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on this. We've got more news after the break.
Hi, CityCast listeners. This is David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, but I also have another job. I'm one of the hosts of the political Gabfest, Slate's politics podcast. Every week, I get on mic with my co-hosts Emily Bazelon and John Dickerson, and we talk about politics and a lot more about other things that we care about. The Gabfest has been going for more than 20 years because the 3 of us love talking to each other, and we have an amazing community of listeners. If you like the open-hearted, curious way CityCast approaches cities, I think you'll like the political Gabfest too. Stream it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
All right, so airports have been in the news on a national level lately. Since there's been a partial government shutdown, it's caused airport employees like TSA agents to be working for deferred pay. So no paychecks until the government gets their life together. And this has caused delays at PHL because who would come to work if you're not going to get a paycheck or you don't know when your next paycheck's coming? All of a sudden I'm sick. Oh, sorry, I can't come in.
Just the thought of that is making me sick. I couldn't.
Literally.
And it looks like a lot of TSA agents couldn't either. Over 400 workers already quit because they can't afford to go without pay. And in response to the shortages, Trump deployed ICE agents to 13 major airports across the country this week, including PHL. A lot has happened to get us to this point, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of backtrack a bit, this shutdown has been ongoing since the end of January. This all started because Congress had already passed half of this year's funding bills, but the holdup for funding currently is for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees several agencies like TSA, ICE, and FEMA. And the funding process was going relatively smooth up until the fatal shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, which our colleagues in Twin Cities had covered. And then with the increased violence and enforcement by ICE around the country, Democrats don't want to fund DHS until ICE changes several of its policies. But because an agreement between Democrats and Republicans wasn't reached on time, here we are with a partial shutdown. So now you see TSA agents at airports are stretched thin, going a month without a paycheck. But instead of paying these agents who go through months of training to do their job, they're instead being assisted by ICE agents who, meanwhile, are still getting paid thanks to Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Yeah, exactly. They got funding $75 billion worth for over the next 4 years. And meanwhile, TSA agents are not getting anything at the moment.
That's crazy.
And ICE agents have not gone through the same level of training that TSA agents have, to the point that TSA now has the responsibility, I stress again, without pay, to train ICE agents to do their job in front of their faces.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've seen awful long lines. Half of the TSA checkpoints at the airport are closed because of the staffing shortages. And now ICE is coming into these spaces in a time in the city and in the country where there's so much protest against their actions as an agency. There's a No Kings protest happening tomorrow. It's going to be at Love Park. And it's protesting the administration's tactics under President Trump more broadly, but definitely includes his bolstering of ICE across the country. There's going to be some road closures in Center City during the time as protesters make their way down the parkway.
Yeah, and our leaders are considering legislation in city council to limit ICE reach here in Philly. Many agency heads have strong feelings about this. Even this week, District Attorney Larry Krasner reaffirmed that he'll prosecute any ICE agents that commit crimes while they're here.
Also, our city leaders are considering ways to try and get ICE out of PHL. On Thursday, Philadelphia elected officials and labor union leaders spoke outside of City Hall, saying these agents aren't helping with the problems that are plaguing the airports. They're actually making it worse. Here's Philip Glover, National Vice President of the area's American Federation of Government Employees.
We need to understand, ICE is not built for running airports. They're not trained for it. They're not even trained for what they're doing in the field right now. I think everybody can tell I'm a former law enforcement officer. You don't wear masks, you don't go without warrants, and you don't frickin' tackle people out of cars and break their windows and rip them out of cars. That's not what law enforcement's supposed to do. So maybe take them for some retraining on that and get them out of our airport. And get TSA paid today.
I also asked our readers about how they felt about ICE being at the airport. The response was overwhelmingly negative. We can't get to everything that was sent in, but just to get a taste of how you guys are feeling, here's what Kat C said. ICE should absolutely not be working TSA checkpoints at PHL Airport. Who thought this was a good idea? ICE has been terrorizing children, families, and communities all over the country for years, and deploying agents to the airport is a bad look. Some people experience anxiety at the airport as it is, and adding ICE agents to the airport experience may exacerbate that for many people.
Hey, I mean, I feel that. I hate going to the airport. There's so much anxiety around it. It's hard enough to get there, and then we're worrying about these long lines, and then also this added layer of ICE being there as well. I totally get what she's saying there.
Yeah, and that anxiety is what people are pointing to as being by design. Some people have been joking, they're just being paid to stand there. But at the same time, their presence is making people fearful to a point that immigrants are canceling trips. And some, depending on their status, are being warned not to fly at all. We also had a message from Maria, who also made a point about the fear of ICE impacting the airports, with employees as well calling out due to fear that they'll be arrested for no reason. She also mentioned, the issue of guests canceling their flights or not even booking because they're fearful. Then you have people trying to deal with documentation, right? Some people don't have real ID after all this time. Other people, they might want to go through Clear or pre-check and all these added things that people are paying for and trying to have together to make the experience getting through security smoother.
Yeah, and there is so much documentation required to go through an airport on a day when ICE isn't there that I can totally see why people are afraid that there's a chance for ICE to use this temporary station they have in airports for more deportation work.
Yeah, I definitely recommend getting your documents up to date as quickly as possible if you have the means to.
All right, we're going to keep following this response to ICE at the airport. We've got more after this quick break. So as promised, we finished reading Celeste Ng's Our Missing Hearts, which the Free Library chose for the One Book, One Philadelphia program this year. If you have no idea what that is, check back in our feed for the episode with Amir Richardson, who helps run the program. We'll have the link in the show notes. Now, if you've not read the book and don't want it completely ruined and spoiled, please skip ahead a few minutes because we are talking about the ending. Siani, were you surprised?
Man, sometimes I'm torn when it comes to open-ended conclusions to a story.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want to know everything that happens. After Margaret's arrest, we don't know what happens to her, what bigger change might have occurred after her final act of protest. Does Sadie ever find her parents? These are the questions that I'm still left with. But this is a dystopia, so it would have been strange to have everything wrapped up in one big, happy, resolved ending. It's realistic, and this book is meant to be a warning, but it's a warning that hopes to inspire people to do the right thing, even in their small, unique ways. Reading up on other opinions about the book, I saw someone describe Margaret as an accidental activist and thought that was a very apt way to describe her now that we have her full backstory.
Yeah, she was kind of forced into this, which is interesting because that's not usually the hero arc we hear about. It's usually someone having strong, brave feelings, and then they go on this journey, even if it's hard, they're persevering, and it feels really like Margaret was kind of backed into a corner, and then she was able to be revolutionized in some way, she realized how awful these things were, but even in the last moments, she was like, should I do this? I'm putting myself out there to lose my family forever if I get caught, doing this big action. And it ultimately is Bird who pushes her to do it in the end. So it was cool because, even though Margaret was doing these big things, it really feels like she was motivated by Bird. I thought it was a really interesting ending. I didn't expect that her protest would be kind of through this storytelling arc, and I really loved that angle. I thought it was going to be a bomb or something with how they were describing it initially. But I mean, that's how they framed it. She
all
was
the build up,
hooking up wires. Yeah, so much build up. But I actually really enjoyed that ultimately Bird was the catalyst for this big action that we don't know if it changed anything or nothing, but it happened.
Do you feel like you understand why the Free Library chose this particular book for Philly to read?
Yeah, I think I get it now. I mean, there are brief mentions of Philly, when Margaret leaves her family and starts her journey alone, she starts in Philly looking for the stories of lost children. But I think it's honestly more about storytelling. Libraries were so prominent to the central storyline. It's where people went for information. And whenever there was a crisis or there was some sort of self-exploration, stories were how characters discovered more about themselves, but also connected to human experience more broadly. And I think there was clear dehumanization happening throughout the book. There was clear pitting against each other of neighbors and communities. And I think stories were the catalyst for change in a way because people needed to have that emotional connection to realize like the extent of what's going on and how it's impacting people. What do you think?
I think to your point about libraries is exactly, why we've seen these institutions under threat, especially in the most recent years, from book bans to disinvestment with lack of funding. We see libraries are a refuge, to access information, to bring communities together, to build that trust that you say is really lacking, both in the narrative, but also in our reality. And it just goes to show libraries and storytelling are powerful tools, and we need to be reminded of that in order to protect it. So all in all, I think this was a very timely read that couldn't have been chosen at a better time to discuss it.
Totally. I completely agree. All right, let's get into some weekend plans. I kind of don't have anything specific I'm going to do this weekend. I'm just hoping to get outside. I may go over to the art museum and check out the newly bare Philly steps. Because
Really?
On Wednesday, there were crews and vehicles working to move the Rocky statue from the bottom of the steps into the museum.
It's finally happening.
It is happening. We've talked about this so much on the podcast. It's very confusing, honestly, to try to sort out because there was 2 Rocky statues on the steps, but now the one at the bottom, the original statue prop from the movie, it is been moved inside and it is going to be a part of the Rising Up Rocky and the Making of a Monument exhibit that's starting April 25th. It's going to run through August. And then after that, it's going to move outside to the top of the steps where currently the Rocky statue replica stands. So there is always going to be a Rocky statue on the steps. There was just 2 for a period of time. The replica is going to stay there while the original is inside. And then once the exhibit is over, Sylvester Stallone is going to come claim his replica that's on the outside. And obviously Sylvester Stallone, the Rocky actor himself. And then the other one will take its place. So yeah, we're seeing some shifting pieces. Everything is finally happening, and it sounds like that is going to be the permanent spot for the Rocky statue. The original prop will, after the exhibit, remain at the top of the Rocky steps for the foreseeable future.
I'm just glad to hear this custody battle is finally about to be over, just ongoing for so long. And if you make it past TSA and ICE at the airports, you will see a 3rd Rocky statue also there, as if we haven't had enough Rocky statues.
Yeah, because we needed another, clearly. Yeah, so I honestly might go check that out tonight because you can get discounted tickets at the museum on Friday nights. But if you wait until April 10th, the museum is bringing back Pay What You Wish Fridays.
Yes.
Right? That's gonna happen through September 4th. Love that. I have no shame. I'll give them a penny. But either way, I'm definitely going to get outside this weekend. I'm going to be working in my backyard. We ran a piece about native plants that I wrote in the newsletter. And my bulbs are starting to pop up. I've got a couple more
Spring
that I'm
here.
getting in there. Yeah, spring is here. How about you? Because you work in a community garden, right?
Yeah, our first garden day is actually tomorrow.
Cool.
So the North Square Neighborhood Project hosts open volunteer days every 4th Saturday of the month, starting at 10. So definitely come through. We're trying to spruce up the plots, clean up around the community. Things will really pick up once things are actually in the ground and there's more veggies to get into. I'm hardline no tomatoes this year. I love putting tomatoes in my salad. Growing them is a different story. We have been warned not to overplant them. And I'm like, how about none instead? I'm good with not putting them there. So
did you just get a ton last year or something that you didn't know what to do with?
They just get out of hand. You have to be really on top of them because then suddenly your whole plot is just completely covered in vines and then everything else gets crushed. So I'm going to stick to things like cucumbers, leeks, peppers. Those are the kind of things that I'm eyeing on, some herbs. But we'll have more of that soon.
We're hoping to get outside more in general this spring for some CityCast Philly Neighbors events. So if you love the work that we do and want to support the show and get some great perks, check out the Neighbors program.
And speaking of those perks, I curate a list of a week's worth of events that our neighbors get in their inbox every Monday before the rest of our readers do.
You also get ad-free listening, and we'll shout you and your favorite Philly business out on the podcast and in the newsletter. If that all sounds like something you're interested in, join the neighborhood at membership.citycast.fm. All right, thanks for talking with me today, Siani.
Thanks, Abby. Have a good weekend, everybody.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Our executive producer is Matt Katz. Our senior producer is me, Abby Fritz, and our producer is Emma Telkoff. Our newsletter editors are Siani Colón and Natalia Aldana, and our host is Trinae Nareen. Don't worry, she'll be back next week. Music is by Philly's own Interminable, with additional music from All the Kimonos and Kid MVGIC from Getty. If you enjoyed the show, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Have a great weekend and be safe, y'all. Bye.